My name was Samir. I was a distinguished physician in Riyadh, deeply anchored in the traditions of my faith. I wore the title of honor, the son of a respected imam, revered in my community. From the outside, my life was one of success and devotion. But within me, a tempest brewed, a profound emptiness hidden beneath the weight of expectation. For months, I'd wake up in the morning burdened with questions I dared not voice. Was this faith my own, or merely a legacy thrust upon me? My soul ached in the shadows of routine prayers, where hope turned to mere obligation. In the silence of night, though, visions of blinding light threaded through my dreams. They beckoned me toward an unsettling truth that I couldn't shake. Then, one fateful night, everything changed. A devastating accident plunged me into the darkness of unconsciousness, where I confronted a presence unlike any other, a radiant figure who introduced himself as Jesus. In that surreal encounter, the veil lifted, and I saw the chains of religion that bound me. I experienced a revelation that shattered my understanding of existence itself. I discovered that the very systems I had upheld were veiling the profound connection every human yearns for: liberation, faith, truth. When I awoke, I was no longer Samir, the proud Muslim. My awakening came at a steep price. Rejection swept through my life like a storm. Friends turned to strangers, and family regarded me as a pariah. Guilt consumed me, yet a flicker of new purpose ignited a yearning for something more, something divine. I began seeking answers in secret, drawn by the whisperings of truth that lingered in my heart. As I share my story, I urge you to reflect. Are you also feeling the tug of something beyond your grasp? Leave a comment below and tell me where you're watching from, at what hour the truth finds you. If you cherish Jesus and are ready to uncover the depths of his love, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. Jesus emphasized that my life was not just about personal fulfillment, but about awakening others to the truth that lay hidden beneath the surface of conventional beliefs. As the visions intensified, I felt simultaneously empowered and terrified. The revelations revealed a reality where I had a role to play. "You must share this awakening," Jesus urged me, and I felt the gravity of his call weigh down on me like a mantle. "You have been given insight into the nature of the spiritual war for a reason. You are to be a beacon of light in a world consumed by darkness." Every word filled me with conviction, urging me to embrace this path despite the risks involved. I thought of my life back home, the luxuries, the connections, and the prestige. All of it felt insignificant in the face of this mission. As I drifted back towards consciousness, the warmth of Jesus remained with me, yet I felt the weight of reality pressing back in. I awoke in a hospital bed, the sterile environment a stark contrast to the freedom of the desert I had just left. Questions flooded my mind. What did my experience mean for my life? How could I confront the challenges ahead, especially when my own family was steeped in traditions that I now viewed with skepticism? The fear of isolation loomed large, but so did an undeniable compulsion to pursue this newfound understanding. I felt a burning desire to spread the truth, to share the revelations that could bring hope to those still ensnared in the darkness. The spiritual war one now recognized demanded that I take action, even if it meant stepping away from everything I had ever known. Would I dare embrace this awakening fully and confront the challenges that lay ahead? The path beckoned, fraught with tension yet illuminated by the light of truth I could no longer ignore. When I awoke from my vision, the world felt irrevocably altered. Gone was the comfortable existence I had crafted as a wealthy doctor in Riyadh, a bastion of traditional values and significant expectations. There I was, Samir, the son of an imam, suddenly branded a heretic, shunned by my family and friends for embracing the teachings of Jesus. The weight of this rejection settled heavily on my heart, a burden that felt almost insurmountable. As I navigated this new reality, every encounter was laced with accusations and doubt, my once familiar surroundings now tainted by hostility. I was plunged into a profound solitude that mirrored the spiritual war. One had just begun to understand. My journey had unveiled truths that challenged everything I had ever known. Jesus had revealed the deceptions woven into the fabric of our society, the hidden agenda of the elite, who thrived on division and ignorance. The very structures I had respected now seemed like chains. The fear of persecution from my community loomed large, casting a shadow over my awakening. With each passing day, I struggled to reconcile the life I once led with the truth I now knew. The guilt for distancing myself from my family gripped me like a vice. I felt their disappointment, the weight of my mother's tears, the harsh whispers of my father, echoing doubts of my choices. Isolation engulfed me. I found myself yearning for connection, yet constantly wary of the risks involved. My faith, which should have felt liberating, began to feel like a double-edged sword. I had crossed an invisible line, and the reality of my decision to embrace a path divergent from my roots made me acutely aware of the consequences. Conversations with friends turned into silences. Relationships fragmented over choices that I felt compelled to make. In those dark moments, I clung to the hope that Jesus had instilled within me, but the loneliness pressed heavily on my spirit. It felt as though I was walking a tightrope, balancing my new beliefs against the societal norms I had always adhered to. Each night, I lay awake, wrestling with fear and doubts. The solitude that came from walking away from Islam weighed on me like a dark cloud. I often thought of the other believers I had met, those who had also experienced their own awakenings, wondering if they too faced persecution in their journeys. I longed for their support, yet I feared associating with anyone who could lead to more judgment from my family. The world around me felt divided, a mirror of the internal conflict I endured. I often witnessed those still enveloped in the deception that Jesus had unveiled to me, caught in the spiritual war that I had now become painfully aware of. As I slowly began to share my experience with a few trusted individuals, I found pockets of light in the darkness. Their stories resonated, echoing my own struggles for understanding, the search for truth amidst the chaos. It was a risky venture, attempting to gather a sense of community while navigating the turmoil I had created. I felt a strange compulsion to speak the truth regardless of the consequences. My heart yearned to challenge the hidden agendas of the elite, the narratives constructed to keep individuals compliant. The more I shared, the more I felt a sense of urgency swelling within me. I needed to awaken others to the deceptions that had kept them chained, just as I had been. Reflecting on the revelations I received from Jesus, I recognized the importance of my mission. The urgency to take action consumed me, though it coexisted with a deep fear of rejection and isolation. I understood that my voice had the power to spark change, to illuminate the path for those still lost in darkness. Yet the reality of that mission carried the potential for more pain, presenting new trials to face. How could I remain true to this awakened spirit in a world that seemed intent on silence? The question echoed in my mind as I moved forward, desperate to find my footing in this new life, ready to embrace both the challenges and the truths that lay ahead. In my quest for truth, I found myself drawn to the Bible, watching every testimony of ex-Muslims I could find online. These stories resonated deeply within me, echoing the turmoil I had experienced as the son of an imam in a conservative community. Most nights I sat in the dim light of my study, heart racing as I flipped through the pages of scripture, each verse revealing something new, something profound. I felt the layers of my life unraveling, an awakening within that forced me to confront the very fabric of my beliefs. Yet, with every revelation came a tidal wave of fear. The prospect of losing my cultural identity and the ties to my family loomed over me like a dark cloud. I often wrestled with conflicting emotions. On one hand, there was a growing sense of peace as I uncovered deeper truths about Jesus and the message of love and redemption he embodied. On the other hand, I feared that embracing this truth would mean tearing apart the very identity I had cultivated my entire life. My family's expectations weighed heavily on my heart, their traditions ingrained in me since childhood. It felt like walking a tightrope. One misstep could lead to a fall from grace, alienation from my loved ones, and a loss of everything I held dear. Each prayer whispered in the stillness of the night became a plea, a sincere desire for guidance, clarity, and courage. Eventually, I found an underground support group, a small circle of believers who had experienced a similar awakening. They welcomed me with open arms, offering understanding and encouragement. Meeting with them felt like stepping into a bright light after years of struggling in darkness. Yet even in that safe space, I sensed the danger of being discovered. We discussed everything from the hidden agendas of the elite that perpetuated division in society to the spiritual war that raged beneath the surface of our daily lives. Each conversation peeled back layers of my old self, exposing the deceptions that kept us divided and fearful. One night, amidst a gathering that felt charged with divine presence, I prayed earnestly to Jesus for the first time. I sought clarity, yearning to know if this path was truly meant for me. The peace that washed over me that night was unlike anything I had ever felt. I realized that embracing my faith meant more than just believing in Jesus. It meant stepping into a calling that demanded courage and boldness. As the days passed and my resolve strengthened, I made the decision to undergo baptism in secret. That moment felt like a rebirth, a reclaiming of my identity that I had feared to lose. Emerging from the water, I felt a weight lifted, and for the first time in a long while, I felt whole. However, each leap toward embracing my new life was tempered by the fear of repercussions. I began to wonder about my family's response. Would they ever understand? Would they be able to reconcile my choice with their love for me? There was a gnawing anxiety that accompanied every moment of joy, a reminder of the stakes involved in my spiritual awakening. The tension between who I had been and who I was becoming tightened like a noose around my heart. The societal fear surrounding those who identify with Jesus echoed in my mind, amplifying the urgency with which I felt called to speak out. Would I have the strength to face the fallout, to venture into the unknown with the truth burning in my heart? The path ahead was uncertain, but the call to action was undeniable. As I reflected on my experience with Jesus, it became increasingly clear that this encounter was more than just a personal awakening. It was a divine calling to share the truth with others. I knew now that the transformation within me was rooted in the ongoing spiritual war that raged not only in my heart, but also in the world around us. The revelation I had received illuminated the hidden agenda of the elite, how they used fear and deception to manipulate the masses, keeping us divided and blind to the truth. I felt a profound urgency pressing upon me. The need to break my silence was no longer a choice, but a necessity. Each day, the weight of this revelation pushed me closer to the edge of action. My newfound understanding was met with a whirlwind of emotions, oscillating between excitement and fear. What if I spoke out, only to face rejection from my family and community? The thought felt like a dagger in my heart. I could already envision the disappointment in my mother's eyes or the stern words of my father, reminding me of the traditions I had grown up with. Those traditions had defined not just my identity but also my family's legacy. But deeper than the fear of rejection lay a relentless call to awaken others to the truth. I envisioned countless souls trapped in darkness, yearning for enlightenment just as I had been. How could I let my fear stifle their awakening? I spent long hours contemplating how to approach my family and friends. Every conversation felt like a potential battleground, where my old beliefs would clash with my new understanding. Each moment I remained silent felt like a betrayal, not just to myself, but also to the divine purpose I believed I had been chosen to fulfill. My heart raced with each passing day as I gathered the courage to connect with those in my life, to share the revolution taking place within me. I reminisced about nights spent debating spiritual matters, and how those discussions had often skirted around the deeper truths we all sensed but never fully acknowledged. I knew I could no longer be part of that avoidance. The more I prepared to break my silence, the more I felt a rising tide of resolve wash over me. I began attending gatherings with other believers who resonated with my journey, those who had also felt the constraining grip of their traditions and found solace in the teachings of Jesus. In these meetings, we discussed the manipulation perpetuated by the elite, the societal structures holding us captive, and the spiritual war that seemed to intensify with each passing day. Each shared testimony strengthened my conviction, ingraining in me a deeper understanding of the stakes involved in this awakening. Together we formed a community that was not just about personal transformation but about collective revolution against the deception of our time. As I prepared to share my own testimony, the reality of what lay ahead began to sink in. I had already lost the security of my old life. Now I was ready to confront the inevitable aftermath of my decision. The thought of facing the backlash was daunting, yet the clarity that came from my encounter with Jesus outweighed the potential pain. I grasped that the path of truth often came wrapped in controversy and sacrifice. Yet I also held on to the belief that truth, once uncovered, has a way of resonating powerfully with those yearning for authentic connections. And as I stepped toward this divisive moment, I felt the weight of divine purpose behind me, urging me to stand firm in my newfound truth, ready for whatever the spiritual war demanded of me next. In an act of symbolic liberation, I made the decision to abandon my former life as Samir, the successful millionaire, and step into my new identity as a bearer of the truth I had come to know. My journey took me far from the comforts of my past, where societal expectations and traditional norms once dictated my every move. The awakening I experienced after my encounter with Jesus became the driving force that compelled me to share my story with others who, like me, were seeking genuine connection and meaning amidst the chaos of life. The spiritual war within and around us seemed to intensify, revealing the urgency of my mission. I felt a calling to break the chains of deception that my community, and indeed much of the world, had been ensnared in. As I embarked on this new path, I faced countless challenges, and suffering became an almost constant companion. There were nights filled with doubt and fear, where I wondered if I had made the right choice. I had turned my back on the traditions I was raised with, and yet the burden of that decision felt lighter every day as I engaged with others on their faith journeys. The pain of separation from my family was profound, but I held on to the hope that one day they would understand my transformation. I found solace in sharing my testimony with those who were also questioning the narratives that had been handed to them. It was in these encounters that I truly felt the presence of divine purpose, the driving force behind my actions. Over the years, my mission evolved as I expanded my outreach. The more I shared my story, the more I realized that the hidden agenda of the elite was a pervasive force in our world, working tirelessly to keep us divided and distracted. I vividly recalled the revelations Jesus had shared with me, the deep truths that cut through the layers of deception I had lived with for so long. We talked about how the systemic issues we faced, wars, social division, and political manipulation, were often tools used by those in power to suppress the voices of the innocent. My understanding of these dynamics fueled my determination to challenge the status quo, to awaken others to the fight for truth in the shadow of darkness. The journey of evangelism was filled with both joy and sorrow. I encountered others who were similarly awakened, each bringing their unique experiences to our gatherings. We formed a community bound by love and a shared desire for enlightenment. And yet, the haunting fear of rejection from my family was never far from my thoughts. How could I reconcile my new identity with the beliefs that had been instilled in them? I found myself praying fervently, asking Jesus for guidance and wisdom as I navigated the complexities of my situation. Each prayer brought a renewed sense of conviction, reminding me that while the path ahead was fraught with obstacles, my mission was greater than my personal struggles. Even amid the joys of community, the solitude from my familial ties lingered. I deeply longed for a reconciliation, for the day when I could share my experiences with my loved ones. I often pictured my mother's face, the warmth in her eyes, and the look of confusion that might wash over her if I revealed the depths of my journey. Each day, I balanced the weight of my new life against the ache of separation, nurturing the hope that my family could one day see the truth me and my community rallied against. The tension of this longing fueled my commitment to action. I had to continue speaking out, sharing the light that I had discovered through Jesus, and remaining steadfast in my belief that change was possible. As I forged ahead, the reality of my experience drove me deeper into the awakening that was emerging across the world. I was one voice among many, but I felt the power of collective transformation in our actions. My heart raced as I realized that our stories, our truths, could inspire shifts in the hearts and minds of even the most entrenched individuals. This spiritual war might rage on, but each step I took toward feeding its light put me closer to overcoming the darkness. It was a war not just for my spirit, but for the spirits of those still caught in the grip of deception. Would I be able to continue standing firm, sharing the truth, and navigating the intricate dance of faith and familial ties? The answer uncertain, but I sensed that each moment brought me closer to the resolution I sought. Now that you've walked alongside me through my journey, I need you to pause for a moment and reflect. Have you ever felt an awakening? A whisper of truth that disrupted the confines of what you've always known? We are living in a time where the spiritual war rages on, hidden beneath the surface of our daily lives. The call for awakening isn't solely for individuals like myself. It beckons to each of you. This isn't just my story. It's a collective narrative urging us to unmask the deceptions that bind us. I emerged from my encounter with Jesus, grappling with transformation in a world that often resonates with fear and confusion. I realized post-vision that my life wasn't just about personal revelation. It was an urgent call to share the light I had found, to awaken others who continue to wander in darkness. But what about you? Are you willing to seek deeper truths, to confront the shadows lurking within your own heart? Each of us holds the potential to rediscover our purpose beyond the paltry illusions of normalcy. I would love to hear your thoughts. Have you experienced a moment of divine clarity? Share your reflections in the comments below. Your experiences matter. Together, we can foster a community of seekers eager to explore the depths of spirituality. And if you're inspired by these words and yearn for more, don't leave without subscribing to Truth from Beyond and ringing the notification bell. Each new video we create aims to unravel even deeper layers of understanding, equipping you for this spiritual battle we're all part of. Together, let's embark on this journey of revelation, where every moment holds the potential for unimaginable transformation. In the conservative neighborhood of Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, my life as a millionaire businessman was intricately woven into the fabric of tradition and expectation. I was raised in a world where obedience to Islamic laws and honor within the community reigned supreme. I attended prayers daily, maintained a facade of devotion, and enjoyed the privileges that my wealth afforded me. Yet beneath the surface, there existed a profound emptiness, a sense of disconnection that I couldn't ignore. As I navigated my daily life, I felt the weight of societal norms pressing down on me, creating an atmosphere where questioning established beliefs was not just frowned upon but feared. One evening, during a moment of utter exhaustion as I sat alone in my lavish home, the nagging feeling that something was missing reached a breaking point. I closed my eyes in desperation, and in that stillness, I fell into a state that felt both familiar and surreal, a near-death experience that came out of nowhere. Suddenly, I found myself standing in a vast, dark expanse, isolated and uncertain. The air was thick with an otherworldly silence, and just then, a radiant light began to pierce through the darkness. I was drawn to it, a warmth that promised solace and understanding. As the light enveloped me, I realized it was Jesus, standing before me with an overwhelming presence of love and compassion. "Why do you seek fulfillment in the shadows?" he asked, his voice resonating deep within my soul. My heart raced as I struggled to find words. Jesus revealed to me the deception that permeated the world I had known. He spoke of the hidden agenda perpetuated by the elite, how they manipulated our beliefs, controlling us through fear and division. In our next video, I will unveil another powerful testimony, this time exploring the miraculous journey of someone who broke free from the chains of deception, igniting hope in the most unexpected places. It promises to be a revelation that could resonate deeply with your own journey. Thank you for joining me on this path of exploration and awakening. I'm Samir, and I want to tell you this. When you dare to embrace truth, you embark on a journey that not only transforms you, but has the power to change the world around you. So step forward. Light awaits. I was shown glimpses of the broader implications of my life, the conflicts and wars that raged across the globe, and how they were fueled by ignorance and blind obedience. Each revelation struck me like a bolt of lightning. The clarity I gained felt surreal yet grounding. As the visions unfolded, I witnessed families torn apart by loyalty to traditions that no longer served them, entire communities living in fear of questioning authority. I understood that my own life had been overshadowed by an adherence to a doctrine that left little room for spiritual exploration. The urgency of this spiritual war became clear, resonating in my heart. This wasn't just about me, but a call to awaken those searching for truth in a world filled with noise. With every word Jesus spoke, I felt fear's grip begin to loosen, replaced by an undeniable call to action. My privilege and wealth now felt like shackles. To remain silent was to betray not only myself, but also those yearning for an awakening. Awakening from this encounter, I was left grappling with the enormity of what had transpired. My luxurious life, once a source of pride, now felt like a gilded cage. The journey ahead brought forth a whirlwind of emotions, fear, guilt, and exhilaration intertwined, as I faced the prospect of challenging the very foundation of my upbringing. I knew sharing my revelation would not be easy. The risk of rejection from my family, from friends I had known my entire life, loomed over me like a dark cloud. Yet the clarity that had come from that divine encounter urged me to rise, to embrace my new identity, not just as a wealthy businessman, but as a bearer of truth, a vessel of hope for those who found themselves lost amidst the chaos. With each passing day, the call to spread the message I had received became more compelling. I sought out others who had walked this path, sharing our testimonies and insights, building a network of awakened souls ready to challenge the status quo. The sense of belonging that came from this newfound community was a balm for the isolation I had felt. Together, we strategized on how to confront the hidden agendas and discuss the truths often buried beneath layers of deception. I understood that the spiritual awakening I experienced was not just a personal revelation, it was a collective movement waiting to break free from the darkness. As I prepared to step fully into my purpose, I felt the pulse of urgency drive me toward the unknown, a promise of liberation amidst a world aching for truth. As a respected doctor in my community and the son of a local imam, I felt immense pressure to embody everything my family and society expected of me. My name is Samir, and in the eyes of many, I was successful. Yet, behind the facade of my professional life, I struggled with an emotional emptiness that gnawed at my spirit. Every day, I donned the mask of confidence in the hospital, while inside I felt like an imposter, caught in a web of expectations and limitations. My commitment to Islamic traditions, once a wellspring of strength, began to feel like a cage that stifled my quest for deeper meaning. Over time, the discontent took root in my soul, spreading like a pervasive darkness. I often lay awake at night, wrestling with questions I feared to voice. Was there more to life than fulfilling roles? Was I truly honoring my faith, or was I merely following a path set by others? The answers seemed just out of reach, taunting me from the shadows of my consciousness. I had witnessed the struggles of my patients, often feeling helpless in the face of their suffering. It thrust reminders of my own emotional turmoil into sharp focus, and I longed for something, anything, that could connect my spirit to a larger purpose. That longing intensified one seemingly ordinary day as I found myself in an inexplicable moment of stillness. I was struck by an overwhelming wave of exhaustion during an afternoon shift, and as I closed my eyes for just a moment, I slipped into a state that felt monumental. Suddenly, the world around me faded, and I was transported to a dark void. It felt limitless and infinite. Then, without warning, a radiant light emerged from the depths, growing brighter until I could see its source. Jesus, standing before me in all his glory. His presence filled the emptiness I had felt for so long, and in that instant, I understood that I was in the presence of divine love. Samir, he spoke, and there was a palpable urgency in his voice. You've been trapped by deception, shackled by the hidden agenda of those who wish to control you. The truth you seek lies beyond the surface of ritual. The spiritual war is not merely procedural. It's a battle for your heart and your soul. Every word resonated within me, igniting flames of hope and realization. He revealed the depth of societal manipulation, the ways in which the elite had weaved narratives of fear and division that kept people compliant, blind to their own power. I saw glimpses of the world outside, families torn apart by distrust, leaders inciting conflict to maintain control. It shattered me, and yet, it empowered me to seek a deeper truth. As Jesus unveiled these profound revelations, I felt the burden I had carried begin to lift. The emotional emptiness transformed into a compelling urgency. I could see how my life had been shaped by forces beyond my comprehension. The restrictions I had followed, mandated by fear, were revealed for what they were: illusions designed to suppress the awakening within. The sweetness of that awakening filled my heart, sparking a defiance against the norms I had accepted. I longed to share the truth that coursed through me, realizing that my experience wasn't merely about personal redemption. It was a call to awaken those still lost in darkness. As I returned to consciousness, the warmth of that encounter lingered in my heart, yet I was left grappling with what it all meant for my life. The choice lay before me, to turn away from the light or to embrace this awakening fully, risking everything I had known. The fear of rejection haunted me. How would my family react to this revelation? Would they condemn me for seeking a path different from the one that had been carved out for me? Despite these fears, I felt resolute. I understood that my newfound perspective demanded action. I had to share it, to confront the deception that shackled so many others. The revelation had ignited a fire within me, and as I stood at the precipice of a new reality, I felt the whisper of Jesus urging me forward into the light of my purpose. In recent months, during my prayers, I began to feel an unsettling sense of emptiness gripping my heart. I am Samir, a successful millionaire and the son of an esteemed imam in my conservative community. On the outside, I had everything: wealth, respect, and a life that many would envy. Yet behind the veneer of my success lay an unexpressed turmoil, a gnawing doubt that shadowed my every prayer. The rituals that once brought me peace now left me feeling hollow, like I was merely reciting words instead of forging a genuine connection with my faith. This internal conflict weighed heavily on my soul, manifesting in a series of haunting dreams that awakened me in the dead of night, drenched in sweat and confusion. The dreams began as vague flashes but quickly evolved into vivid encounters. In these visions, I found myself enveloped in darkness, only to be met with a comforting light, an illuminating presence that beckoned me with warmth and safety. In these moments, I felt compelled to seek this light, curious yet scared about what lay beyond the shadows of my reality. As I approached the light, I sensed a power that filled the void within me, and it was in this ethereal space that I felt the presence of Jesus. His spirit radiated love, compassion, and understanding, cutting through the layers of doubt that had begun to encase my heart. "Samir," he said, and I could hear the weight of his words resounding through my very being. "You are struggling with truths and deceptions, caught in a spiritual war." Those words resonated deeply within me, like a bell tolling for a long-lost truth. Jesus revealed to me the hidden agenda of the elite, the manipulation that kept people like me shackled to a narrow understanding of faith. I felt a wave of understanding wash over me as he illuminated the complexity of the world around me. I was shown visions of families torn apart by blind allegiance to outdated beliefs, and leaders who used such deception to maintain power over our lives. My heart raced as I began to grasp the depth of the spiritual conflict, a battle for our souls that had played out for centuries. Throughout this experience, the gravity of Jesus' revelations gripped my soul with an intensity I had never known. The truths he shared were both liberating and terrifying. I saw how societal division was carefully orchestrated, how fear was wielded as a weapon to ensure compliance from the masses. With each new insight, I realized that my life had to change. I owed it to myself, and to those still lost in the murky waters of false narratives, to embrace the light and awaken from the slumber of complacency. The realization that I had the opportunity to be a voice for truth ignited a passion within me, propelling me to challenge the very foundation of the beliefs I had previously clung to. Awakening from that vision, I felt both empowered and terrified. My prayers became less about obligation and more a desperate plea for guidance. I wrestled with the dichotomy of my existence, the wealthy doctor who adhered to tradition versus the seeker of truth yearning to break free from the confines of expectation. I found myself at a crossroads of identity, pressed between the fear of alienating my family and the deep yearning to share what I had learned. No longer could I ignore the pain simmering beneath the surface within my community, where people were unaware of the forces manipulating their reality. The spiritual war was no longer an abstract concept. It was a stark reality that I felt compelled to confront. With each passing day, I cultivated the courage to break my silence. The fear of rejection loomed large, yet I knew the potential for awakening was far greater than my fears. I began confiding in trusted friends who I suspected shared my newfound curiosities. Our conversations were charged with hope and urgency, igniting discussions that explored the deeper meanings of faith, revelation, and the nature of deception prevalent in our society. I felt a community taking shape around me, driven by a shared desire to rise above the fear and embrace the truth. And as I took my first steps toward this awakening, I felt the weight of my past gradually lifting, replaced by the undeniable call to action and purpose that lay ahead. The day of the accident started like any other, but I couldn't have imagined how profoundly it would change the trajectory of my life. I was Samir, a successful millionaire and a respected member of my community in Riyadh, an esteemed doctor and the son of an imam. I had built my life around the principles of my faith, and yet, deep within, I felt a haunting emptiness that I couldn't shake off. My prayers felt hollow, mere rituals devoid of the spiritual connection I craved. The weight of expectations bore down on me, and as I drove home that evening, my mind swirled with unanswered questions about life, purpose, and faith. In a split second, everything changed. The sound of crushing metal filled the air as another car collided violently with mine. I remember a blinding flash of pain before descending into darkness as the world around me faded away. In that moment of nothingness, all my senses dulled. It was then that I experienced something beyond comprehension. I found myself standing in a vast, dark desert, an immense emptiness stretching endlessly toward the horizon. Fear clawed at my chest, but before I could succumb to it, a radiant light emerged from the depths of that darkness. There, in that brilliant glow, stood Jesus, his presence palpable and warm, illuminating the desolation surrounding me. "Samir," he called gently, and his voice echoed in the depths of my soul. The moment I heard my name, I felt all my fears dissipate. "You've been caught in a web of deception, where the truth has been veiled by religious systems that distract from a genuine connection with the divine." In that instant, everything I felt during my life rushed back to me. The pressure of expectations, the loyalty to traditions that I began to question, and the emotional emptiness that had led me to this very moment. Jesus illuminated the hidden agendas of the elite, the manipulation that kept me and countless others shackled to a cycle of fear and compliance. This was the spiritual war. One had been oblivious to all along. As he spoke, images began to unfold before me. Visions of suffering individuals trapped in societal confines, families torn apart by blind allegiance to outdated ideologies. I was shown how the power structures perpetuated division and conflict, making it nearly impossible for people to unite in search of truth. In that desert, surrounded by light and understanding, I felt my heart break for those who had succumbed to the deception, for those who felt as empty as I once did.